We're going to talk a little bit about stick angle in relationship to the forearm for traditional grip. When you're working with traditional grip, there's a lot of schools out there. The most common is this, where you see lots of books that show in the collapsed position what's supposed to happen, and when you raise the stick, everything stays the same in terms of position of the fingers and thumb. Well, that's not the way it works. Okay, so sorry, but what you need to do is you need to have the stick more open, like this. So you have, see, so instead of having this 90-degree angle, you're much more obtuse, much larger angle. This is going to afford you one important thing, and that is stick height. Just from a regular stroke, your stick is much further up. And now I'm going to replace it and go back to that 90-degree thing. You can see the difference. I'm opening the hand up, and the stick is up in the air. Also, consequently, watch my fingers and thumb here as I drop the stick down to the head. You see what happens there? I'm slowly letting them collapse in to allow the stick to fall, like this. See? When I open it up, my hand opens up. It's a very important thing if you want to be proficient with traditional grip. Okay? Now, the other thing about traditional grip, things that you need to think about with this, is the different motors you have available. Everybody's into finger control. Well, that's what finger control would look like. Simply like you're pulling a trigger on a gun. See? That's all it is. And what happens when you do it this way, as you're collapsing, or not, excuse me, pulling the trigger, you're forcing the drumstick down. You see that? It tags the head, and then you lifting your finger back out of the way, or moving it forward rather, allowing the stick to come back up again. So the rebound occurs. Much in the same way, you're using your thumb. So here in a nutshell is that finger position and what you're going to be doing. I personally, when I'm using fingers, I take my bottom two fingers and I move them away so that there's nothing impeding the upwards and downwards motion of the drumstick. If you take a look back in this little area back over here, you see a reflection of my left hand right there. And you can also, although it's a mirror image, you can still see what I'm talking about. Most people, they try to do this, like they get some, they need to kind of pull the stick down onto the head, and really, honestly, you're kind of forgetting that if I were just to open the hand up, the stick's going to fall to the head anyway. So simply moving in a natural anatomic position, which this isn't, but this is, you're allowing that stick to move freely from a normal position, from just this to finger control and back again. So that proves true finger control. A regular wrist stroke does the same thing. If you keep your index finger in that position and you just simply rotate the wrist over, here's something you can do at home to show I'm telling you the truth here, or a relative version of the truth. Anyway, I'm supporting with my right stick, I'm supporting the tip of the left stick, so it's sitting there. I put the third finger under the drumstick, still just sitting there. Now I'm going to rotate my index finger over the top of the stick, the same way I would be if I'm making a wrist turn. And what happens? You feel that downward pressure on this stick, on the right stick here. You feel that downward pressure pushing down. And I'm doing nothing but just turning my hand over. So there's nothing that we have to do to get the stick to hit in this position. The benefits, again, of this position is by making this turn, theoretically, I'm bouncing underneath that stroke. The same way I would with finger control, or with a thumb, or any of a number of other ways, which I'll get to in a minute. But as my finger is turning over, it's sending the drumstick down onto the drum head. See that? As I turn back over, the thumb, consequently, even with an open position, the thumb is picking the stick up. See? Just like that. It's just simply because the thumb's there. And my thumb is actively not doing anything like this. In terms of the thumb, the motion of the thumb, if you hold the stick correctly, you can kind of see, getting used to this here, you can kind of see the angle that the thumb is against the stick. Again, in that 90-degree angle of the drumstick and forearm, you can see the thumb is all the way over the stick. And what you want to do is try to keep that open because as you're lifting that stick up, the thumb, you see if this works, there we go, the thumb can let that stick fly way higher than what the palm is allowing it to, okay? So the thumb is a hugely important aspect of this grip. And you should really work at trying to bounce this stick and controlling it so the stick itself really at this point, is not moving higher than the index finger. In other words, you're not trying to do this, you're just trying to do this. If you want it louder, you just turn the palm up with the stroke of the thumb, and look how much stick height you have. Plus, you're actively moving your hand, which, if you want to change techniques, or if you want to go from singles, right, with the thumb, here to doubles, you can listen to how bad that sounds. All right, I'm sure we all experienced that. But if you keep it here and moving the palm up to doubles, very cleanly, because why? Your hand's already moving in that position. It's just changing the emphasis, pulling over the top of the drumstick with the index finger and letting your bottom two fingers collapse into the stroke, allowing the stick to rebound and coming back up again. Everything replaces itself, okay? The next thing I would recommend in developing this, once you're getting a nice stroke here, right, from first to thumb, then we turn here, we don't drop the third and fourth finger down under the drumstick. Now, if you watch, kind of an interesting thing happens here. Slow it down. As I'm coming down, it collapses. As I'm going up, the fingers straighten. Okay? Again, that's important because you don't want to disrupt a natural ergonomic flow of what the hand and stick are doing. You want to get out of the way of the drumstick. That's the key here. Okay? Now, the next thing you would do is you just simply put the index finger over the top of the stick. Now, I want you to watch something rather interesting. I'm going to slow this down. Moving out of the way. See how much higher that stick is moving? But my hand, rather, isn't making any more motion. I'm just simply taking the top finger and moving it out of the way so the stick can be controlled by the thumb. And then when I want to play softer, it's the same motion. I'm just putting the index finger over the top of the drumstick. And it brings everything back down again. But I'm making the same motion here. Look at my hand. Nothing changes. All I'm doing, thumb here, index finger control on that one. All right? That's pretty much basic left-hand technique 101. Hey, if you're interested in lessons, I am now doing Skype lessons. I'm kind of refining the camera and video thing, but it's getting there. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. I know I've had a lot of videos on YouTube. We're going to try to kind of redo all those and actually using live drums here. So, and I know I'm looking at the video camera. I'm not looking at there. I'm looking at you. How are you? So anyway, I'm stopping.